Well, for you run GBTA in Asia. First of all, tell us a bit about the conference you've been running today.
Well, we had our inaugural GBTA China Conference here in Shanghai. We did not know what to expect, but it has been a great success, better than anything which we expected initially.
So what's been on the agenda?
Well, we had a whole host of different sessions. We started off on the first day with the BTI China report, the latest release for 2013, giving an in-depth study of the financial trends, where business travel is developing to here in China, obviously closely related to the current state of the Chinese economy. From then on, we carried on into a session on social media and how social media affects these days the travel industry. Obviously, from our end, we wanted to know specifically how is it affecting corporate travel, what can both buyers and suppliers learn about it. And of course, as we know, China has 536 million internet users, but they are working on their own system. Where we are dealing with LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter, they have their Weibo and other local Chinese systems. And in many ways, this is something which foreign companies have to become familiar with if they want to do business here. For instance, what I never knew was how important Weibo is for the commercial application. We then moved on to a very hot topic, and this really is the airline situation in China. We took a look at the not so much at the legacy carriers, but at the growth of the LCCs. The low-cost carriers are much more focused towards corporate travel, whereas the LCCs in Europe and in the United States traditionally took more a sort of a backpack, leisure, cheap direction in terms of travel.
With respect to the statistics that you were talking about at the start, give us a quick flavour, in as briefly as you can, about what that revealed about the market.
Well, what it really reinforced is something which we've now said for about a year, and that is that China will overtake the United States as the #1 business travel spending country in the world, and that as soon as 2015. Yeah. Another fact that was focused on is the growth of international outbound travel. I mean, when we're sort of looking now at overall 85 million Chinese traveling outbound, we're going to an excess of 100 million Chinese travelers going overseas. And this does not include Hong Kong, Macau, or Taiwan. So, I mean, the big question anyone can ask themselves is the world ready for the Chinese traveler?
And with respect to the local market, what was revealed internally with respect to the information and research that you did?
Well, corporate travel in China is still 96% domestic travel. And if we're looking at the global situation, obviously, I mean, the slowdown in the economy in the United States, the debt crisis in Europe is obviously having its effect on the China economy as well. I think the interesting thing is where China's outbound travel has slowed down due to these reasons over the past few years. The Chinese government took corrective measures and concentrated really more on building up its own economy, becoming less dependent on exports. And the growth has been because of that primarily in terms of domestic travel here in China itself.
So with respect to the local issues that are affecting China at the moment with respect to pollution and SARS. How much do you think that's going to affect the overall picture, or do you think it's something that's a blip that they'll cope with and deal with, from a government perspective?
I think it's a blip. I think it is something which you will never be able to predict. Certainly, I mean, I think you're taking two things there. One is something which is a gradual problem, and I think China will have to address environmental issues, pollution, particularly in its sort of main cities. But I think for the first time, this is being given serious thought by the government. Well, SARS, avian flu, these are the sort of things you will never be able to foresee and forecast. You can only try and effectively combat it. And I mean, if you're looking at the current situation versus what was happening 10 years ago in Hong Kong, for instance, I think you see already the countermeasures are much more effective, having taken much less of an effect on the current travel situation here in China than it did, for instance, 10 years ago in Hong Kong, where it was devastating. I mean, it just cleaned out the hotels, and the tourist market almost came to a stop at the time.
That's fascinating, Well. It's always a pleasure talking to you and always deliver lots of insight. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed.